Okay guys, it's time for history again, so let's go. Make sure you have the following. Please make sure you have the correct set of notes. Okay, for 4E and 4F, you should know that your chapter 2.3 is stapled behind chapter 2.2. It's only one page, so make sure you're on the correct page. Okay, as usual, have a pen, something comfortable, and make sure you've slept enough before we start our lessons for today. Okay, so now we are looking at chapter 2.3 after the Korean War. Some quick dates. Remember, the Korean War starts on 25th June 1950 all the way until 27th July 1953. So we are looking at a period after this. Okay, and more specifically, the rest of the world. How does the Korean War affect the rest of the Cold War? Okay. So this is what we want to look at. Okay, we want to look at how does each superpower respond to the end of the Cold War. The USA and the USSR. How did the Korean War affect how they approach things, and how did it affect the Cold War in general? Okay, so this is what we want to look at. If you look at it, there are three main points. The Cold War expands beyond Europe. This we already know. American involvement intensifies, as well as the militarization of the Cold War. Okay, because why? Here we are talking about the Korean War. It's the first time that shots are fired. Okay, remember the Berlin blockade. Okay, there was no fighting, even though there were troops on the ground. So if we look at all three, what we see is an escalation. Remember this term? Okay, so we will see that the Korean War marks a new point in the escalation of the Cold War. So let's go with the first point. Okay, what we see is that the Korean War is the first ideological clash. Okay, remember the Cold War starts as a war of ideology, right? It's about communism versus democracy. Okay, you don't have to take this down. You should really know it very well. Okay, but a key point here is beyond the borders of Europe. Originally, it was two countries. Then, after that, we saw it manifest in where Europe, right? But now it is in Korea. Okay, Europe and Asia. Okay, so we see it expanding past all the different continents. Okay, it sets the precedent. Precedent means pattern. Okay, remember you can always pause to Google. Okay, for future proxy wars, things like Vietnam, things like Afghanistan, things like Cuba. Okay, but then the question is, why do they have to fight in proxy wars? Remember that in 1949, what did the Soviets gain? Nuclear technology, right? So the whole point of avoiding direct conflict, okay, and to engage in proxy wars is because when I avoid direct conflict, I am avoiding nuclear war, or rather avoiding potential nuclear war. Okay, which is of course going to lead to World War III. And that is what nobody wants. Okay, no sane human being is looking to cover the world in radiation and nuclear ash. Alright? And what is the pattern of the proxy war? We always see superpower with a proxy versus the other superpower. Right, so in the case of the Korean War, it is the USSR. Okay, the USSR is let me use another pen color. Say purple. USSR supports North Korea, right? Versus South Korea plus the USA. So what the point I'm trying to make here is that one of the superpowers is involved directly, but the other one never is. Okay, I'll give you some examples later. Which is now. Okay, if you look at this, this is Vietnam. Okay, so Saigon is the Vietnamese capital. Okay, so Vietnam actually 1954, sorry, to 1975. The Americans went in, the Americans lost. Okay, or rather, they did not lose. They conducted a strategic retreat, which is a nice way of saying that they moved out of Vietnam. Okay, and it's very interesting because the US always says that they are the land of the free, the home of the brave, right? Where the defenders of freedom and democracy are. But if you look at this is actually the picture on the right, right? This is a photo from America, obviously, because the language is English, right? And it's Americans criticizing themselves. If you look at the dollar signs, they're saying, oh, we went in for the money, we went in for control of the area. And obviously, they are using South Vietnam as a puppet, okay? This is for Cuba, so we will cover this next year for 5N, or if you're 4 Express, you'll be covering it now, okay? So what happens is that the Soviets place nuclear missiles in Cuba and the Americans' backyard, okay? This is Afghanistan. So what happens in Afghanistan is that the Soviets were in control of Afghanistan. Okay, so the US sent the CIA to support the Afghanistani freedom fighters, Afghan freedom fighters, who were the Taliban. Okay, no, sorry, the Mujahideen. I think I'm spelling it correctly. Not the Taliban. Okay, these are Afghan freedom fighters. Okay, who are fighting against the USSR. Okay, so what happens is that this is a case where the USSR is directly involved, but the USA is not. Okay, but the interesting thing is that the Mujahideen in the 1970s and 1980s would eventually evolve. Okay, the generations, the knowledge and the weapons, okay, from the Cold War would then equip the next generation, which would be the Taliban and then Al Qaeda, which essentially means that one generation later, American involvement in the Cold War would contribute to the eventual war on terror. I'm sure some of the same weapons were involved. Okay, so really the Cold War still has an obvious effect on us today. Okay, so that sums up what is happening across the world. Okay, we also know that American involvement is intensifying. Okay, China turns red. When we talk about red, we're talking about the communism. Okay, and American perception was there's only one communist bloc, but this is not true. Okay, first we have Stalinism, and we have Maoism. Now, don't laugh. Okay, if you see Maoism in the SPQ, it refers to Chinese-style communism. Okay, so Americans fear that there's a domino effect. So what is a domino? Okay, a domino is like, those little things, and there's like a number on it and things like that, right? Okay, and you line them up. Okay, and when one of them falls, it will cause the rest to tumble, right? So they will fall down, and all of them will fall down. Okay, so for America, they fear. Okay, let's see. They fear that if you have one country become communist, what will happen is that this will snowball, and every other country will become communist. Okay, if you like, you can stop and go and Google the domino effect and go and find out what that is. Okay, but essentially the Americans were afraid that after the USSR is communist, USSR is already communist, it spreads to China, and then it will spread to Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia and downwards to Thailand and so on and so forth. Communist influence will spread. Okay, and if you can imagine, the Americans, they are very, very against this spreading of communist influence, and that is why we have NSC 68, which, remember, is about containment, except it is containment going global. Okay, this is why I need my whiteboard. And so you can imagine the Americans will only step up their containment game all the more. Okay, and this will of course intensify the Cold War, make it more hardcore. Okay, they also invest more in Japan. Why? Because more money means what? Less susceptible to communism. Susceptible means vulnerable. Okay, and they form CETO, which is basically the Southeast Asian version of NATO. And the arguments that we can make for NATO are exactly the same, except when you say Southeast Asian, right, guys? Normally you would think of all the Southeast Asian countries, but if you go and look at textbook page 66, and you can count, there are actually very, very few Southeast Asian countries which are actually part of NATO, which essentially shows that NATO was more for military defense than any actual Southeast Asian cooperation, okay? And so if you look at it, really, when America starts to get its fingers involved around the world, what does it mean? Okay, it means this bipolar world order, the divide between the West and the communists is getting wider. Okay, and the scale of the Cold War is increasing. Why? In terms of the number of countries involved. Okay. Very good. And of course, we know that the war becomes more intense. We know that NATO is founded in 1949. And if you look at this, when Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers means that basically the USA was in charge. Like, even though it says Europe, right, the leading general is always an allied power. Okay. Increased defense spending. If you spend more money on defense, obviously the amount of military resources you have increases. Okay. Increased NATO membership basically means more countries are involved in NATO, which means more countries are ready to fight against communism. Okay. And so the Soviets responded with Warsaw Pact. We must remember the Warsaw Pact is 1955. This is after the Korean War. Okay, so when you only have NATO, okay, there's nobody else to fight. But when we have a Warsaw Pact, what it means now is that any kind of fight is going to involve the entire Europe and potentially more than that, the rest of the world. Okay. So this is the problem with the Cold War. So these are the NATO countries in 1950. This is just maps to show you. Okay. Look at the colors. Basically, if you see every single thing is basically either belonging to NATO, which is on Western Europe, or to the Warsaw Pact. Okay. The countries in the middle are basically neutral countries. Okay. So basically what we see is that the whole world is being split up, and I said over and over and over again, the scale of the conflict is increasing in terms of the amount of damage that can be done and the number of people, okay? And there's an arms race, which is to say they are racing to see who can create bigger weapons. Go and Google this and find out what it means. So really, when we look at the Korean War and we look back and we see, look, it is the first conflict of the Cold War period. What is so significant about it? Okay, I think it is symbolic of what is happening. Whatever happens in Korea is simply happening again over and over again in the rest of the world. Okay? And we are also seeing what we have is political brinksmanship again. Go and look at your textbook. There is a chunk on brinksmanship. What does it mean? Okay, it's like a staring contest. Okay, to see who blinks first. Okay, but go and have a look. For Express, better go and have a look at this, and because it's going to be important in Cuba. Okay, so for E4F, we have finished the entire N-level syllabus, and that is where we are going to stop. Okay, please make sure that you review your content, review your notes, so on and so forth. Okay, now time for the final joke of the day. Let's say, one day I was walking around and then I got into a fight, and I was pretty scared. You know why not? Because who was I fighting? I was fighting 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And why was I so scared? Because the odds were against me. Okay, bye-bye.